From alcohol overuse to moderate use, no more shame and blame. Is your own alcohol use on your mind a lot? Since almost everyone who enjoys alcohol has likely had a binge, how do we manage that? How do we know how much is too much? And how do we regain control when we think we've lost it? In this special 12-part series, confidence coach Susan Axelrod interviews alcohol moderation expert Dr. Michele Perron. This series begins with the question, why are we having this conversation now? And it wraps up with a burning question for you to consider. For your own alcohol use practice, what will your path be? This special series is sponsored by Axelrod Confidence Coaching. Hello, friends. Susan Axelrod here, the Confidence Coach. Wow. We're only in the second episode of this 12-part series, and already we are feeling how deeply it's resonating with people. This conversation is an important one. I want to let you know that it will be helpful for you if you listen to the series in order. There is an intentional progression built in. So if somebody happens to share an episode with you, go ahead and listen to that episode. It was shared with you for a reason. And then by all means, find the podcast series and start from the beginning. Each week, each episode, we are going to be offering you a challenge, an opportunity for you to check in with yourself, do some calls to action for you with the intention of supporting you on your own alcohol use journey. In the first episode, the challenge was 2 parts. The first part was to tune in to the role that alcohol plays in your life. This was a surprise to me when Michele said it. And I said, what do you mean? And she said, well, alcohol plays a role in your life. What is it for you? The second part of the challenge was to eat more protein. And I really urge you to go back and listen to that first episode so that you know why eating more protein may change your game in alcohol use. My very, very special guest is Dr. Michele Perron. Michele has 17 years of professional experience working at all levels of addiction care, from inpatient, outpatient, extended care, and telehealth to online moderation coaching services. She has supervised therapists and counselors, taught college courses in counseling, and developed workshops and programs. She believes the key to wellness lies in self-discovery, mindset shifts, and practical ideas that make sense. Hello, Michele. Welcome back to this important conversation.
Hi, Susan. I'm so happy to be back, and I'm looking forward to the holidays, and I hope our listeners can also do that as they listen along.
Well, it happens to be the holiday season now, but this conversation is timeless. It does not matter when someone is tuning in. They're going to learn and gain so much from it. Possibly even an opportunity for the holidays to be safer, healthier, more well, and more fun for them in the future. So thank you, Michele. Thank you so much for being here. The first episode of this conversation was the first part of our introducing why are we having this conversation now. This episode, we're continuing to introduce people to this idea, which after all, as I have shared with you, was new to me and news to me. And the people, my friends, clients, people I know I've been talking about this podcast with have said, same thing. What's that? What is this all about? So today we're going to be talking about the philosophy and practice of moderation. For full disclosure, Michele and I did a lot of preparation to prepare for the podcast. She's written an outline, which I love. I get to read it every week and it sinks in, and that's what we're sharing with you today. And in the outline, you wrote something that I loved. It says, explore, motivation and mindset the 30,000 foot view. So let's go, Michele.
All right, super. So the 30,000 foot view. In our current culture here in the US, alcohol is considered another beverage. It's used for celebration, it's used for commiseration, it's used to cope with emotions, get rid of pain. It's used as a tool for many, many things. And frankly, overuse of that tool is the norm, like the social norm. So what I'd like to do in this episode is talk about how we think about alcohol as being just another beverage, and about the truth about alcohol. It's not just another beverage. So I'd like to kind of shift your idea of what alcohol actually is. It's unlike milk or water or juice or electrolytes or anything else you might drink, carbonated water or even sugar water like sodas. Alcohol brings with it an energy. It always brings with it an energy, which gives it the capability of changing our attitude. You know, people call it an attitude adjustment because they can go from feeling tired or frustrated or angry and take a few drinks and have an attitude adjustment, feel better, feel relaxed, you know, feel more comfortable in their own skin at times. But and while those things seem really functional and useful, what we need to look at is that negative energy that comes along with alcohol. We know when it happens when we have a stupid argument with someone we love that was unintentional, when we make poor decisions when we're drinking, that we wouldn't make that same decision had we not been. When it starts to bring trouble, we have to recognize that trouble originates with that negative energy. And it's progressive. The more often we drink as a tool, the more frequently we will drink, right? And the more volume we'll drink. So now all of a sudden we're on that slippery slope, and the consequences get more and more uncomfortable with time. That's the negative energy. So that has to be primary. What bad things do I feel, perceive, or what happens when I drink as often and as much?
So, as a reminder, I'm going to stop us occasionally. I felt a lot of emotion come up in me because, yeah, and I'm writing my notes and looking at my notes now. Is it just another beverage? No, because it does change our attitude. Now, in the neutral zone, maybe it helps us feel a little bit more calm or a little bit more comfortable in our own skin, or, you know,
We dance better.
yeah, exactly. A little bit less inhibited. This is neutral to good, neutral to fun, neutral to, and neutral is okay to, better. And that's great. That comes under the auspices of what you shared last time, which is drinking to celebrate, not to obliterate.
Yeah.
But then you said, but there's also a negative energy. And then I want to invite people to rewind already. I'm telling them rewind and listen again to a litany of things that show you yourself that you're beginning to be in the negative energy of that attitude change from this particular beverage. One of the things you said was you get in an argument and it's stupid. You didn't intend to be in that argument, that's not where you were going. That's not what you wanted. That's what happens. You begin to make off decisions, et cetera, et cetera. There were a lot of things because Michele, as a reminder of the, to whom are we speaking? We're speaking to people themselves about their own alcohol use. Yes, okay, maybe you can identify in others, but it's hard to do something about others. But if we do something about ourselves, we're in charge and we're also role modeling. So if we're asking ourselves, we're curious, do we drink, do we overuse alcohol? Do we drink too much? Do we have a problem? You've already really given us a handful of ways to know if we're in that negative side, the negative energy of this particular beverage. So thank you. That was really helpful. Please continue.
Yeah. So along with that, considering, and understanding it's not the same as any other beverage. Alcohol is in a category all its own. That's one. Number two is, like we talked about last week, the role it plays in my life. When do I use it and for what reason, right? And once we identify that, what we need to do is shift our mindset from our expectation of why we're using alcohol as a tool, instead to putting it in its place. And by that, I mean choosing how much you're going to drink and what's the purpose of drinking, right? So am I drinking to intoxication on purpose, or am I drinking to enhance wine or relax in a conversation, or just, like I said originally, to celebrate? Because when we use it in those ways, intoxication actually gets in the way of the occasion. It gets in the way of the emotions that could be very positive, the conversations where you solve the world's problems and you don't forget it, all of those things. And so we have to look at using it that way. So if you don't enjoy the taste of alcohol and you have to drink it quickly to get to intoxication, that's a cause for pause. Like, why are you drinking because
Is that a thing?
Yes.
Oh,
yes.
okay.
So many people say to me when I suggest, that the intake, low volume, low frequency, means no more than 2 drinks for women, 3 for men, no more than 2 or 3 days a week. And they say, if I'm only going to drink 2 drinks, what's the point? I love when I have that question, and I ask them to sit and think about that. What do you think the point of low volume, low frequency is then? Because it's a very different end goal than drinking to intoxication.
Wow.
And when they find their answers, that's huge.
So then you would be indicating that there are clients and people who have told you, I drink to get wasted because
all the time, every day. That's a very common reason why people drink. When they feel it's getting away from them, is when they are every time they drink, they get intoxicated, or they drink to get intoxicated. Many people look at me like, what do you mean? What's the point of drinking alcohol if I'm not getting drunk? I have to, that's part of it.
This would be the mindset part. We had motivation, which is, did you accept challenge 1? Did you ask yourself, what role is alcohol playing in my life? Which included personifying. I'm going to leave that to the first episode. And and you just said, once you identify that role, then you choose how much you're going to drink. And you said putting it in its place, a double entendre, actually. And then how much are you going to drink, and why and how am I going to use it? And so there's a very different end goal in low volume, low frequency from drinking to get intoxicated. So from there, you had a construct, if you're ready to get into it, because when I saw it, I was like, oh my gosh, I love a good construct. And the construct is to me, by me, through me, as me. So I feel like I want to make a graphic on this. Yeah. So if you could talk about this, I really couldn't wait to hear about this construct.
Yeah. So it's kind of the way life happens, and it's the progression of insight and growth as a human being. So initially, and we'll use alcohol as our example here, this is what we're talking about. Initially, when people begin to use alcohol, they don't know how to use it appropriately, and they learn how to get intoxicated pretty quickly. And if bad things happen, often people in the beginning might drink too much and then get sick and vomit, those sorts of things, right? And they didn't mean to do that, and they didn't really know, and they're learning how to manage it when they're quite young, teens or 20s, right? Then at that point, we're still in that thing, oh, this happened to me. I went out and partied with my friends, and I got drunk, and I got sick, and I got blacked out even maybe, and then someone had to bring me home. That happened to me. I'm not in charge of myself. It happened to me somehow through using this fluid, and I don't know how, right? I lost track and went overboard.
Or then, also very bad things.
Very bad things. Oh, sure.
Very bad things.
In car accidents and end up in jail.
Yeah, exactly.
So as we begin to learn it, we begin to learn kind of our limits, and often we'll intentionally overshoot that. And with time, our limit goes up. So we have a tolerance. So when I'm choosing consciously, right, I'm still consciously incompetent. I know what I know, but I'm not in charge yet. I'm actually doing it. And I know I overdrank last night. I shouldn't have done that. I shouldn't have said that. And that's the phase where in the next morning you go, oh my God, did I really say that to her? Or honey, I'm so sorry for that stupid argument. You go back and you try to repair the damage that was caused the night before. So that's when I take a little more responsibility and things are happening by me.
Got it.
And so through the learning, right, and typically by me can even, come to that point where you think, oh my gosh, I have a problem. I need to seek some help. 94% of people don't seek help because of that impossible goal we talked about. So with this option of moderation and learning how to function well with alcohol in your life and how much is enough, and when and how and why, like what are the rules of good alcohol consumption, of responsible, what does drinking responsibly really mean besides something by the Surgeon General that's has got no detail to it. So when you want to learn to drink responsibly, start getting curious, then you start to become consciously conscious, of consciously competent. You start to do, you start to do and be and become the kind of consumer that you want to be. So you might start to limit a little bit, but sometimes you have friends like a girls' book club or a luncheon, or the guys out playing pool or bowling or out on the boat or hunting camp, or there are times and places and people that might be triggers for you that cause over drinking. So at that point, you have to start to realize that when you're not with the people that influence you to drink more, you tend to have more personal efficacy, personal effectiveness in this. So then you start recognizing that my drinking, when it happens with me, is teaching me something about myself. So things are happening through me. So I recognize that I probably shouldn't drink with my old college buddies all the time. Maybe we should, do a daytime activity instead of drinking at night, or, maybe I need to limit my hunting camp time, or maybe the book club could be not at this restaurant where we tend to drink too much Chardonnay, but maybe we can do something else while we're doing the book club, or bring NAs. You start to think, this is happening through me to teach me something about the people I love and my connection to them. That's when recovery begins. That's when understanding and change begins.
Okay, hold 1 second. Just to let people know, NAs are non-alcoholic drinks.
Yes.
Non-alcoholic NAs, non-alcoholic. We're also going through another construct, the construct of conscious competence, which I was familiar with, and we're not going to spend time on that. I'm listening to you, and I like the way you're incorporating it into this construct, so I'm not going to go on a tangent there. But I did want to say, I wrote down when you're realizing that you want to start, you become consciously competent, that you start setting limits. You may change the location and you may change the people you hang with. And then you said on a boat, 2 examples, on a boat or hunting. And I'm thinking to myself, why is there alcohol connected to boating or hunting with guns? But we'll leave that out for the obvious realm as well. And just so you know, this very week, I had a conversation with someone. He's currently 50, and he ended up in his mid to late 30s. He was a meth addict, alcoholic, and turned into cocaine when he couldn't get meth anymore. And he went to jail for 2 years, and then he turned his life around. He said to me, I said, wow, this is amazing. And he's been sober since. I said, what was the biggest thing that created change for you? Of course, after drying out in jail and whatnot, he said, I stopped hanging around with the people who I thought were my friends. They weren't my friends. They were my drinking buddies. they wanted to drink with me. And when I stopped drinking, they weren't my friends anymore. And so I'm not exaggerating, 2 days ago had that very conversation by a real person, myself, to, sort of.
That causes a lot of fear because people don't want to give up their friends and family. They don't want to change everything. And so that's another barrier to seeking treatment or getting help. And so when you're doing moderation, it's not the same as cocaine and methamphetamines, obviously, but it does allow you to be in the midst of the people you love and not have to completely change things over, and unless you want to. So I have people who still meet and will go to a bar with people that they generally drink with, but when there's been some time between the last time, often they'll find that they notice there's been a change in the drinking of the person they're meeting. I even had a client who went and they started to do shots in a bar with a buddy from college, and he's in his mid 40s. And he came to golf in Florida and they did shots. And he said, I ordered 2 shots to start the night. And he said, when they brought the shots to us, he said, I looked at it and I just didn't even feel like having it because of the change that happens. Even though he didn't quit drinking, he just worked with me on moderation. He ordered the shot and then he ended up giving it to his buddy who still wanted it. And he had absolutely no qualms whatsoever that he just didn't feel like it. And that's where I want people to be in the choice, right? They need to be in the driver's seat when it comes to that, and not letting alcohol say, oh, it's there, drink me. But even if they order it, to go, I just don't feel like it right now. I have to go home later and feed the horses or whatever, right?
This is the happening through me. And I call this, in my teaching, in my messaging, in my experience, everything comes from my experience. I'm in charge of me. And so in that moment, he was in charge of him. Addiction wasn't in charge of him.
Yes.
He ordered 2 shots. We'll get the night going. And, he's in work with you, obviously. But even when he came to consciousness, conscious competence, he said, I don't really need 2 shots. 1 shot is going to do it.
He didn't even drink the first shot. He didn't even drink the first shot.
Wow.
He just gave it to his buddy. They had a nice conversation and he went home early.
And one of the things that you had indicated, now we've had a lot of conversations, I don't remember if it was public or in private, you said that there is a lot of reduction of use because people are in their awareness about the use, this progression. That's why I said at the beginning, like, it's a progression for us to be understanding this. And I did want to just drop a teaser here. You said something before about the reason of failure, the biggest failure. And I want to go back to encourage people to go back to the first episode and listen to it to find out, what the biggest failure is and why you're working in a new form of recovery. So, okay. So we've been through the happening to me, right? Things happening to me because I'm young, I'm learning, I don't really know how to moderate use. I don't really know what's happening. I don't know what this is. Everybody else is doing it. I'm doing it. And of course, bad things can happen to us at that time. And then we're in conscious, and then we move into happening by me. Happening by me. So now happening by me is when I begin to take responsibility. I grow a little bit. I find a bit of my own maturity. And this is where you're in conscious incompetence. You're conscious that it's happening by you, but you're still not good at it yet. It's a progression of growth. And then from there, you come to the happening through me. That's where we are right now, happening through me, where you're beginning to make more consciously competent decisions, that you're starting to set limits for yourself because you realize how you want to be. And the way you want to be is not the way you were before when you were in overuse.
And it goes beyond just moderating the drinking. It goes beyond the first part, by me, is, oh, I drank too much, I need to back off, or that was fun last night. So you're taking responsibility, you're understanding. But the through me becomes even a little bit philosophical. Like, how do I want to connect with others? what do I gain from over drinking? What do I gain from, moderating? What do I gain from abstaining once in a while, just to observe others and connect better, and be more responsible. So it becomes a little bit more of that role, like what does the role serve me? How does this serve me or not in my life? It's just like a little bit above that. Here's the doing that needs to change. And this one is what part of my being needs to change.
Yeah. And so I actually have a construct that I developed years ago for myself, which I call a 2-part seminal soul question. Who do I want to be and how do I want to be? This had nothing to do with alcohol use. This was my personal spiritual growth and transformation, growth, development, and transformation. But I hear it in here because you literally said, how do I want to be? And so what I would again connect up the word maturity, not as in juvenile, child-like, but in our maturity, in more wisdom. Wisdom is beginning to come into this.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Wisdom.
I love that word. One of my
Yeah.
favorites.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so good. So then from there we go to the ASME. So let's hear about ASME.
So ASME is missed. It's missed in traditional recovery of abstinence-based because we lose a lot of that spirituality that comes with ASME. And AA touches on it and gets there a little bit, but I don't think it hooks people quite enough to make change more massive across the board for people who participate. It's a small percentage of people who are successful and they try and try again, which I admire that. That's hard to do. But ASME has more to do with the connection. It's all spiritual. It's all beingness. And then that 30,000 foot view that we talked about at the very beginning is like, how do I want my life to be? Is this important enough to include in my daily life? If I know what it does to my body, is my body a temple? Do I need to take better care of it? Therefore, my mind, I'll live longer. I'm at less risk for dementia. I'm at less risk for a lot of problems that high volume alcohol brings, right? So you get to that, almost that transcendent perspective about where, how, and who, and what. It's a bigger, higher view of alcohol as a component in my life. When clients get there, I can tell you it goes from being a primary concern to a secondary, third, fourth, fifth. It's lucky to even be on the top 10 when they reach ASME.
When you reach ASME, what you were just saying was the use of alcohol goes down to lower importance. Is that what you were referring?
Yes. The priority to drink and drink frequently.
The priority to drink and drink frequently.
Yeah.
Okay.
And to use it as a tool to change your attitude or cope with something in life, that becomes really far less important than it is when I first meet clients.
Oh God, hold on one second. I just have to breathe for a second. Okay. So again, this is a construct. It's a structure. It's a construct of self-understanding that you're offering us. To me is victim consciousness. I'll put this in the podcast notes. By me is responsibility consciousness. Through me is surrender consciousness. That's the one that gets me emotional. And then as me is oneness consciousness. This is so good. Okay, so what came up for me as you went into the as me is, again, this is our self-wisdom, but stop me if I'm wrong. Stop me if you want to say, Susan, you're off in left field. We're not talking about that now. Just bring me back in. This is what I have to ask these questions. Something like, if you stay in the early phases, the to me or the by me, even to the by me, where you do begin a little bit of self-responsibility, if you go into overuse, it's hard to get through to the next phases because addiction actually kind of grips you and prevents you from, do you understand what I'm asking?
Yes, yes, that's addiction. That's exactly addiction. You get lost in the process. It's almost like if you were a plant, you get lost in the fertilizer and you forget the seed has to grow up and out. Actually, the struggle with alcohol becomes the perfect storm, the perfect setup for personal growth. And that's where treatment can be super powerful because it can take you from the worst place to the best place in your life. But you have to have someone who knows that's what's underlying all of this. And it's not just about drinking, it's about you as a whole person. Drinking is always a symptom of something else. I have yet to meet the person. Maybe once in 17, almost 18 years, I met someone, oh, I like the taste. That's what everyone will say, but that's really not the cause. It's not the underlying connection. Sometimes it's a physiological thing. And so as we reduce the use, some people don't need the why, most do. But if they don't need the why and they just start doing the thing, they will reduce their drinking as well. So this is it. If you get stuck in the bottom two, you don't have that potential to get to wisdom or any level of wisdom. And there was a study done, my PhD, I don't remember her name, but it was looking at the maturity level of most adults. And she found that what she found out was about 3% of adults reach the level of wisdom. But most of us run around still kind of adolescents on the inside rather than looking for wisdom and maturing and being able to be wise. And so
again, I mean, this my whole world. This is my work. With everything you just said, this is my work. And so it comes up for me that going back to the first episode where you said 94% of people don't ever get the help they need. And that 94% is people with markers of alcohol use disorder. And then you said, I encourage people to go back and listen to it. One of the reasons is they don't see themselves in it. They don't know that that's them. Now, also in the first episode, which I listened several times again, you talked about the example of the woman who used a drinking glass, for her drink, right? Her one drink was a regular drinking water glass instead of a highball glass, right? And so people don't know that they're in it. And so that's one of the reasons we're doing this. So really, it's all about you. And that's why you're kind of helping me understand. We're talking to people. If you're curious about your own use, if you're wondering about yourself, or if you can talk to your book group about this and say, I heard this podcast and they're talking about this. Do you ever ask yourself how much you use? Talk to your hunting buddies about this. If we're each putting away a 6-pack, in one sitting, in one night before we go hunting, I'm not sure that that's, inside the markers.
Prudent. Let's say
prudent. Exactly. And again, early on, if we get lost a little bit, addiction, I use the language surrounds us, sort of it grips us. And then we become the one who doesn't see that we're in it. So we're talking about, now you said the lower end. So I wrote it on my page in the progression. At the bottom, it says to me, then the arrow up goes by me, and then you ascend to through me, and you ascend higher to as me, because the as me is where you're really seeking wisdom. You're really striving to become the person you really want to be. Addiction may tell you you're a bad person. The title of our podcast is called No More Blame or Shame.
Yes.
And so, we're working to break through that. Wow.
When you first start drinking, I had a very young girl for a short period of time, and she was drinking a bottle of wine a night or more often. And
what do you call young when you say a young girl?
20s, in her 20s, early 20s. And she was in that party hardy stage of her life, that phase, I call it phase related drinking. And she said, we were talking about portion size. And so we were talking about a bottle of wine. And I was educating and explaining to the group that a bottle of wine was intended for 2 people, that each person would have 2 drinks. And the last drink, because there are 5 drinks, standard drinks in a bottle of 750 milliliter bottle of wine. And each person has 2. And then the last one is shared if it's the same gender, or the male will have the 3rd drink. So that keeps you well within what the French, who invented all that, felt was the proper amount of wine for people to share. This young girl was astounded. She looked at me, she said, I thought a 750 was for 1 person. I thought that was 1 serving.
I mean, you shared this with us in the last episode, so I'm really glad to share it again, because I remember listening and thinking to myself, whoever thought a bottle was, because in the last episode you said that was a surprise to people, and here's a real person who it was a surprise to. Yes. I thought the bottle was for me.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
So she would gather with friends and everybody would have their own bottle of wine.
Right. Right. And that, this is another thing that we can tune into: phase related drinking. I had a conversation with a client today about age and phase, but it was life phase related to business and, ascension in business, getting promoted and confidently progressing as a husband and, a professional, but phase related drinking, because wow, this is a big one. Phase related drinking, Michele, is, of course, it's obvious in high school, you start drinking. Mm-hmm. And then in college, of course you drink, obviously.
Passage.
Yes. Yeah, of course you drink. Obviously you drink. Everybody drinks in high school. And then you graduate. Let's say you go to grad school. Okay, now you're drinking from stress. We talked about this last episode. You were eloquent on a couple of the reasons people really grow in their use. You're in grad school. You need help sleeping. You're overwhelmed. You're stressed, and this. You chill with your friends. Or if you're over here working in a city, you're going out every night. You're 22, yes. 23, 24
First
years
job.
old. You've got your job, you're going out. Or, the girls' night, you're all drinking your own bottle of wine, I guess. Now you're in your 20s doing that. Maybe you're partnering, maybe whatever is happening, you're progressing, but surely you're still drinking. Then you get into your 30s. Let's say if you were going to follow some kind of traditional path, let's say you're starting a family, whatever your family looks like. And now the kids are over there and you're over here drinking,
That's typically a time when drinking will go down, when they have the children in the beginning, when they're under 2, 3 years old. There might be a little bit of mommy drinking, which is a trend since I started my career.
Yes, I'm aware of it.
Yeah, but typically there will not have quite the volume that they were drinking during that college and 20s phase. It'll slow up a little bit in your 30s, but when the children get a little bit more mobile and walk and talk and they're out of diapers, then the drinking will pick up again.
Because they're going outside to play, they're school age, and they're over there, and you guys are standing at the counter drinking your margaritas, or you're at the football, watching the game on the TV while they're over in the.
And everyone's in the yard, or summertime, you're getting together with your neighbors, or a block party, or family comes over, you go over. So it's low stakes, if you will, because it's family oriented.
I mean, the thing about mom wine and the young mom wine is really a growing concern. And because that's where these young mothers, they may be, let's just say even young mothers in their mid to late 20s, are telling them that's young to me, but certainly even younger, they're telling themselves, well, I just need it to, relax. Yes. And that they can get into, in that case, we might want to talk about like this consistent use. And sometimes consistent use leads to more use because of tolerance. Oh my gosh, Michele, there's something else that you did right that I want to touch on before we end. And of course, I want to make sure you got in whatever you intended to get in today. You said, with regard to social drinking, what's important, what's the problem with one day at a time? So I wanted to see if you could speak about that.
Yeah. So traditionally, when we go to abstinence, we start saying, I'm going to not drink today, one day at a time. And so that one day at a time is a big slogan in AA, and it's a big thing in sobriety treatment. And so it transfers into moderation in a negative way. Because if we count, I only had 2 or 3 drinks today, it doesn't sound like much at all. Like, I didn't even drink a whole bottle of wine. What's the matter? I'll do that every day of the week. But by the end of the week, I'm going to be having several bottles. And I always say, visualize in your mind, if you're a wine drinker, a case of wine, which typically has 6 bottles in it. Now, look back at my 3 drinks a day or 2 drinks a day, and how many bottles of wine over time does that add up to? You know, so that's 3 or 4 bottles by the end of the week. That's almost a case. Right. So if we fill that up and say at the end of the year, you kind of look back and average it out and imagine those cases of wine stacked up near you all at once. So maybe if you're drinking a case or 2 a week, over 52 weeks, you're having 100 cases of wine next to you. That's what you asked your liver to process all year long.
Oh my God.
And that's a great visual.
That is such a great visual. Because, okay, on the one hand, when you see the cases of beer or wine, when you see the handled jugs, when you see the flasks, when you see, or the pints, I think they're called, or whatever, you know, if you're not in, addiction tells you there's no problem with that. Oh, that was over a long period of time. It's no problem. If you're not consumed in addiction, you can see the visual of it. But what you do to support yourself and your ability to use alcohol with that, when the negative energy comes in, you throw them away. so you don't see it. So I do like this visual. You said something which I think is a good place for us to end. I want to say it again, and I'm going to say it again and again and again. And that is, in the first episode, you did use the expression, how much your liver can process. Mm-hmm. And as we tune into embodiment, we begin to bring our mind in connection with our body. I know a lot about the liver already, but for some reason, when you said it that way in the first episode, I said, wow, that's something that a lot of people might ask themselves, how much can my liver process? Now, you talked about it from a quantifiable standard. You know, this many drinks your liver can process. And we may or may not know those standards, those specific, amounts. But if we tune in to our little organ, the liver, lovingly supporting the liver, I think that's an important place to sit for a minute. How much alcohol can your liver process, isn't it?
Yes. Yeah. I mean, if you drink hard liquor, it's only about an ounce an hour, ounce and a half for like maybe a man, but that's not a lot. So if you're outpacing that, you get intoxicated. And then but once you're done drinking and you pass out or you decide to go to bed and you're done because you're lying down, then your liver continues to process out that amount for the next several hours. And here's a fun fact. A lot of people get DWIs in the morning at 11 a.m. the day after they've been drinking till late in the night when they're taking the neighbor to Walmart or something. Then they get pulled over. They don't feel drunk. They're driving fine, but there are little details that are off that they don't notice, and they get a DWI. And that's disastrous for people because they feel very put upon, like, how can I have that? I have a BAC. I haven't had a drink in 10 hours. But it's because your liver can only work so fast.
Wow. This is something that I will be bringing back every episode because I think that a lot of people can understand. If I'm asking myself, how much am I drinking? How much should I be drinking? How much is moderate? How much is overuse or whatever? If instead I ask some of these questions that you asked on the very first page, you're talking about how healthy do I want to be?
Yes.
And if I want to be healthy, I can still drink, but I can drink in a moderate way that my organs in my own body
Yeah.
can
I don't get
process.
another one. I mean, the liver transplant, yes. And unfortunately, a pretty high number of people go back to over drinking after they get a new liver.
Yeah.
Um, but it's really important that we know the consequences to the body. You know, the liver has a name. I'd never thought of this before, but I heard it on a podcast recently that the liver was named that because originally it was thought to be such an important organ that it makes us live. It's the liver.
What?
Yes.
Oh my gosh.
It causes life in the human body because it's so important. And he said, that's the liver. If you take that out, you die.
Oh my gosh. So in Qigong, we learn and we teach and we practice being connected, mentally and in the interoception, the internal feeling to our organs. This is something I practice and I've learned, and so maybe that's why it's resonating with me so much. I never heard it put that way. That just put a whole different spin on it.
Yes.
But we do in Qigong. That's why Qigong is really a really good modality to support you if you want to get more in charge of your own drinking and be more in moderation. There's a lot of compatibility with every single thing that you've said here that we teach in Qigong. God, Michele, I mean, we could go on forever, but I think I'm going to bring us to a close. But before I do, was there anything that I missed that you wanted to talk about?
Yeah. One last thing was today's challenge.
Oh, yes, the challenge.
So today's challenge is I want you to think about a good reason to drink. Write down all the reasons somewhere in your little notebook as we go along here. What are good reasons to drink, valid reasons to drink? And they might not be what you think. They are not to change emotions. A good reason to drink is not to cope with an emotion. So
Okay.
it's not to cope with bodily pain. It's not because it's Tuesday or Thursday or any other day of the week, right?
Okay.
Because you have that saying it's
Or
fine.
more likely it's not because it's Saturday, the weekend.
That's right. Not Saturday or Friday night, right? So it has to be linked to something that it would be appropriate and normal to drink. Like when you're at a wedding, when you're out to dinner, it's your birthday, it's a holiday, you're on vacation. Those are good reasons.
Is it a good reason if you're in an airport and there's a layover and you sit in a bar for all those 4 hours? Is that a good reason?
Probably not.
I mean, as opposed to once you get to your vacation, now you're having a Bloody Mary and now you're on vacation. But when you have I was just traveling, this just came up for me. I had a 4-hour layover unexpected. And so, wow, that's a good challenge.
1 or 2 drinks is usually okay. But if you're traveling to a foreign country where you don't speak the language and you're getting on an 8-hour flight across the pond, you want to be able to find your hotel and navigate to where you need to be in a foreign country. As I travel alone frequently, and so I don't want to be left vulnerable in a foreign country where I don't speak the language. It's not good.
So this is really a good one because what's going to come up is well, what do I call a good reason?
Yes.
But you did give us the qualifier. It's not a good reason to change emotions or cope with emotions, or for bodily pain, or because it's just Saturday night. But you said it's a good a good reason. Okay, maybe Saturday night if you're hanging with your friends and you're really out and you're safe and all the things, maybe that is a good reason, but
Yes.
not just because it's a random
I
night.
like to say my sticky idea is if you drink for special occasions, you become an occasional drinker.
Wow. And for me, I made a choice to stop drinking, to be an ally for people who can't drink. And I want them to know, yeah, you're not the only one here at the party not drinking. I'm also not drinking. But I'm thinking a lot about this. I'm learning about this. When my nephew gets married, next year, am I going to have a toast? I haven't had a toast yet. I've passed on the toast. It's no problem for me. I don't miss it at all. But that would be a very special occasion. And so perfectly appropriate to, drink a toast or, whatever, if you want to be a moderate drinker. Right now, I love not drinking at all because my body is clean.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Oh my gosh. Michele, this is so good. I want to thank you so much for your time today. I mean, I feel like we could go on for 2 more hours, but I'm going to bring us to a close. I want to thank you so much. I'm already looking forward to our discussion next week. Just like I said last week, I'm sure I'm going to say it every week. And I really appreciate these constructs that you're giving us that really make sense and can be personally applied by anyone. If you are watching or listening to this podcast conversation, I want to invite you to go deep on behalf of yourself and especially your future self. Do the work, ask the questions, and don't be afraid to change because been there, done that, and it's an amazing outcome. So, all right, Michele, thank you again, and
Thank
I
you.
will
Look forward
see
to
you
next week.
next week. All right, take care.
Thanks.
Bye-bye.